Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Single No More Online Summit. We are here to give you the tools to help you feel confident that you can not only meet, but keep your Mr. Right this year. I'm super excited for my guest today. She works with all the women who, like all of us, probably got asked, how are you still single? You know, I'm sure we heard it way too often, and thankfully there's people out there like Evin to help us so we don't get that question anymore. She is a dating and love life coach supporting millennial women in creating empowered dating lives and epic relationships. Wouldn't we all want that, right? She helps guide women to cultivate unconditional self-love, which we'll totally get into, and deep self-worth. Oh my God, this is the game changer and saving grace to everything like we've been talking about. Release their blocks around intimacy and connection, create empowered, heart-centered dating lives, and align with their dream partners so they can finally create the fulfilling love lives we all deserve. Now, she is obsessed with bringing women together to share their journey, just like this summit, because you've all heard my story by now, in her powerful and intimate Love Life Transformation Group program and via in-person LLT. What's LLT?
Love Life Transformation.
Oh my gosh, sorry. This is the non-millennial in me being like, what's LLT? Sisterhood retreats. I love it. And she's also leads an empowered dating community on Facebook where she shares game-changing insight, real talk, and endless encouragement for women looking to level up in their love lives. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Evin. So happy to have you.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Oh my gosh. And I love how you actually say, like, I focus on, millennial women, 20s and 30s. And how come you work with, is this just because you're of this age and you resonate with these women more, I'm guessing?
That's a big part of it. And then part of it is just that I really find during this life stage is when a lot of us are like, okay, I'm feeling solid about my career and my friendship. And now I'm at this point where it's starting to feel really important to me. There's like this deep calling to have partnership, to have intimacy. We start thinking about how am I treating myself? How am I taking care of myself? And it can also be a tricky time frame in that for a lot of single women at this age, we find our friends are all coupled up. We're going to a ton of weddings. People start having babies, and it can feel really isolating, time pressure, anxiety, all that stuff that I support women in breaking through. And that's a big part of the reason to do this work in community with other women, to not feel so alone.
I think that's amazing because I think part of us, like you said, I agree that during these 30s time or, late 20s, 30s, if it hasn't happened yet, the pressure comes on, whether it's from ourselves, whether it's from society. We feel it. And I know that's obviously a biological thing as well. If you want to have kids, you got to be really conscious of it. But at the same time, we probably want to feel like we have it all together. And I'm sure we probably could just throw ourselves into work. I know that happened with me. I was hit that 32 mark and I went, ooh, hasn't happened yet. I really should start taking this a little bit more seriously. Went online, worst experience. And then I was single again at 34 and then again at 38. And thankfully, luckily now I'm engaged, but it was only from doing the self-work, the internal work. And a lot of it came from that self-worth. And can you share a little bit of your story about how that awareness came to light with you?
Yeah, sure. I was always like chasing, chasing that connection, chasing men, trying to turn situationships into relationships, right? Like finding myself in these really undefined, murky things that were a little bit more either just like stuck in hookup territory or or just finding that I was accepting crumbs and seeking validation from men. And finally I got to this point. I went through a big breakup in my mid-20s with a partner I'd lived with, thought I was going to marry him, thought my whole life was set. And then spent the rest of my 20s really figuring out, okay, what are my patterns? What has driven me to attract and choose partners who aren't really meeting me where I am or who don't really want what I want? And finally just having that revelation of like, oh, this is all just a reflection of my relationship with myself.
Wow.
And like where I'm so afraid to speak up for my needs and my desires and to be vulnerable with men and to to really like practice that, what I call emotional bravery. I was so afraid to do all of that because I had I connected these dots that shouldn't really be connected between, their reaction to me and my worth. So it was like, if I speak up for myself and then he walks away, or he can't, he can't meet that need or whatever, that's going to mean I'm not worthy.
Mm.
I was so looking externally for my worth. And
Mm.
that's really when I started on my own path of transformation, of realizing like, oh, yeah, I have to take responsibility for who I am with myself and how I'm showing up. And then of course that really shifted the kind of people and experiences that were available to me.
And how did you make that connection to, what was that? Do you remember that moment when you actually saw, because we can all just kind of, it's really a hard thing to see, to go make that connection between, with my reaction to this is what I'm thinking. And I know for me, I was totally just, I was reacting, or I had a very similar situation. Like if I wanted him to say great job on something, like I come to him with a great idea, great job, but I didn't get that. And then I thought, oh, I'm stupid. I'm like, obviously, I mean, I had to read a few books and realize that, wait, that doesn't mean I'm stupid. He's just
Yeah.
not responding the way I want him to. So how did you make that connection that it came back to self-worth? Because I feel like all of us who are really accomplished, really confident, beautiful, why, where I didn't think there would be a self-worth issue,
Yeah. Well, two things come to mind. And the first is a really raw story that I don't know if I've shared this one publicly. Right after I got out of that relationship in my mid-20s, I got on, I think it was OkCupid at the time. And I was like, I'm going to find my husband. When that relationship ended, I really had this attitude of like, um, I think I even remember saying to him, if you come back, I'm going to be off the market already. Cause I am like, I just had this vision. I'm the one who's so ready for
Right,
and
right,
before
right.
I'm going to go out there and find my husband. So
Yeah.
got into online dating, and I went on the first date that I went on from online, like makes me cringe to even talk about it. This guy, there was just so much like judgment. Like everything that I would share about myself, this guy would make jokes about and be sarcastic about. And I noticed that instead of calling him out or saying like, dude, instead of standing up for myself,
Mm.
I would laugh along with it. I would be self-deprecating. I would kind of start adjusting who I was to be more of what I thought he wanted me to be.
Mm.
He sits down at the bar, he orders me a dirty martini without even, doesn't know me. I don't like that. I don't want that, but I drink it because I don't want to seem whatever,
Mm.
difficult, who knows. And
Accommodating. Yeah.
yeah, and then the hard truth of this story is that even sitting there on this date, when in my head I'm like, this guy is gross, and I'm, I like can't believe this is what's
I'm
happening.
not myself. Yeah.
Mhm. And then I brought him home that night and slept with him. And I woke up the next day, and it just was this really intense moment of like, what, what,
Mhm.
because exactly as you said,
Mm.
I always considered myself an empowered woman, and
Mm.
I seemed very confident from the outside.
Yeah.
And I just had to really look at like, where did those choices come from for me?
Mm.
Because I just had this moment of like, this is not going to be what I want this next chapter of dating to look
Right.
like. And that's not about, by the way, that's not about not sleeping with people. Like that was,
Right. No, it was just the fact that you did it even though you were uncomfortable, and you realized that it didn't serve you, and you're like, why did you really question, why did I do that? Why am I doing something that I probably shouldn't have? It felt like, yeah.
yeah, that like wasn't self-honoring,
Mm.
and it didn't feel like it came from an empowered place. Exactly. So that was the first big like, oh, I need to look at some stuff here before I
Mm.
just
Why did I let that happen?
unconsciously
Yeah.
start dating. And then I also started reading books and listening to podcasts, and that was all helpful. But
Mm.
when I really started doing the work was when I got myself to a personal development workshop. It was the first time I had a coach in front of me and was in an environment with other people who were wanting to work on themselves. And the phrase that jumped out at me the most was, we're the common denominator in all of our experiences, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And this idea of everything in our lives is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves.
Wow.
All of our other relationships are an extension of our relationships with ourselves.
Mm.
And that's really what got me into doing this work for myself, and then realizing like, oh, we have all this power to change
Mm.
for ourselves is what really excited me about sharing
Mm.
this work with other women.
I love that you say this power, because I've always been using that word. And when I say power, I mean, we have the ability, we have the competence, we have, and then that's why this word empower comes from, because we are able to, choose. We can have those situations like you were just saying before, where we went along with things, or we can choose what we really want. And I think that's amazing. I found it so hard when you were saying how everyone else is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. I found that really hard to understand and comprehend. People used to say it as the mirror, and I'm like, what do you mean? Didn't make sense to me. How did that really, how did you get that to sink in, and really, where did you see that happening?
Yeah. So that was tricky for me at first too. And I think the thing that felt most uncomfortable about that is it felt a little blamey, of like, oh, does that mean, in there's a difference between taking responsibility for
Mhm.
ourselves and how we're showing up and how we're
Mhm.
connecting with people, and blaming ourselves and saying
Mhm.
like, oh, if I'm attracting unavailable men, then like I'm whatever, a bad like judging ourselves.
Right.
And I had to really learn, okay, this is not about self-blame. If anything, we need
Mm.
much more self-compassion.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, just playing these things out of like, okay, if I don't really believe that I'm worthy and deserving of
Mhm.
let's say a partner um, who will accept all of my emotions and my needs and fulfill desires and really commit to me and be loyal and right, if I don't really
Mhm.
believe I am deserving of all that,
Mhm.
or if I don't give myself that same unconditional love and
Mhm.
prioritize myself and really treat myself the way I'd want someone else to, right?
Mm.
Then when I'm going out into the world, the people who, first of all, we attract people who treat us the way that we treat ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Um, we also have, I kind of got more into the psychology of it and learned that this idea of confirmation bias, which is that
Mm.
it's almost like we have blinders on for
Mhm.
everything that doesn't fit the way that we think about or believe, right?
Yeah,
That
the
we are,
beliefs are dangerous. We've learned that. The beliefs are dangerous.
yes, yeah, exactly. So we're like subconsciously seeking out people who prove us right.
Yeah.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
confirm what we think about ourselves. And then it's like you don't even notice red flags necessarily if those red flags align with the way you, right, if you're kind of unkind to yourself, let's say, about your body,
Mhm.
and then you meet someone who like in little subtle ways is unkind about your body, you'll barely notice it, or you won't notice it. When you start treating yourself better,
Mm.
anytime someone shows up who's like not on par with that, not treating you that well, you see it really quickly and you're like, oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I know with a lot of women, there's a lot of image issues as well, and I feel like at the same time, if they're not able to then. I'm thinking of people who might not be happy with themselves and their image, and then they get a man who's complimenting them, and it's almost like rolls off them, right? They're not able to receive it, and
Right.
that's why just a small example of why this self love and I like to say loving yourself and being so happy with what you have and who you are and what, how beautiful you are just by being a woman or a person and a human, you know makes all the difference, because that was a lot of, I think, in my issue was, um, with my own issues, I wasn't able to receive, and unknowingly, it's crazy. And I love what you said about self compassion, because I know I was going for a while, reading a lot of relationship books, because my relationship just wasn't this beautiful magical thing that we'd all dreamed of, and it wasn't it didn't feel like the one and all this. But the minute I started spending some time reading self compassion, it just shifted my whole perspective of my relationship. So if I can, it's why I love, as part of your course, that you and your teaching, that you really help women identify these blocks, the limiting beliefs, and all that. So what are there any like common blocks, or is it very independent based on each person, or are there some common things that you see a lot?
Yeah, I've been surprised over the years to find that our blocks tend to be really universal, right? I mean, that's honestly what the my,
Probably good, because then we can easily hopefully solve it.
right, right, and that's my group program was born out of doing a year and a half first of just one-on-one coaching and hearing the same things over and over,
Yeah.
and helping women have the same breakthroughs, and hearing, like, wishing in my mind that they could all be friends and connect, that they could all support each other. And now
Yeah.
do that. So yeah, I mean, self-worth, self-love, as we're talking about, is really number one. Looking at, we block ourselves by um, not practicing self-love, like as a action, right?
Mhm.
um, Not giving ourselves that self-care, not being willing to set boundaries and say no when we need to say no, just to take care
Mhm.
of ourselves. Not prioritizing ourselves.
Mhm.
Mindset is huge. Going back to confirmation bias, going back to those beliefs, and how people pretty much show up how we expect them to. I find that at this point in life, a lot of us have accumulated so much negativity, assumptions, fears, right? We don't want that thing that happened before to happen again.
Mhm.
And we bring the past into our present, and into our future, really.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like, so many women are dating from this place of jadedness, and
Mhm.
already telling themselves, like, this, this probably isn't going to happen for me. This date's probably going to suck just like the last one. Or as soon as you start getting excited about someone, going to that mindset trap of, well, when is this going to fall apart? And I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm in my head and over analyzing. And then we start playing these games. Like, we're not going to reach out because we don't want to come on too strong. All of this self-sabotaging.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. It's almost like, it sounds like if you're having those tendencies already, it's like you just need to kind of stop, take some time, and really get back to you, and kind of put yourself back in the driver's seat. You mentioned the self-deprecating. I feel like I see this all the time, and to me, is that a key indicator of a self-worth issue?
I think oftentimes it's self-worth. It's also just fear of how other people are perceiving us. It's like a sign that we're usually putting a lot of weight in other people's opinions,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of trying to control our image. I know that for me, I back years ago, before I went through my coaching training and started this business, I was working in an office, working at a startup, and I was the only one. I think there were about 10 or 12 of us in the office, and I was the only single one. And I joked about it all day long, and just made myself the butt of jokes, and it entertained people. And
Right.
but what I realized it really was, if I make these jokes, or if I put myself down in these ways
Mm-hmm.
first, and show that I'm self-aware about being single, or being a crazy cat lady, or whatever my whatever my thing was, um, then I kind of beat them to the punch.
Yeah, I'm rejecting myself before you reject me. That's
Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
yeah.
And in reality, they weren't like, I was completely projecting.
Mm.
They weren't worried about my relationship status. They didn't care.
Yeah.
Other than, like, wanting to set me up with someone from
Right.
a loving place, but, like,
Right.
no one else is as focused on us and our perceived shortcomings.
Yeah.
That was just my own story about what it meant
Mhm.
for me to be single,
Mhm.
right? So that's really where the work, yeah, that's really where the work happened.
Yeah. I've definitely been told, and I'm sure we've all heard the saying, we are our own worst enemy. And it is amazing, because there's always been what people say about, if you were to talk to your friend the way you talk to yourself, you would not be friends with you. You wouldn't be friends. And it's so true. And I really had to pay attention to what I was saying to myself, what beliefs I had, what stories was I telling myself? Also, what stories was and beliefs did this other person have? So I think it's also quite interesting when you take these two complex human beings, both from different upbringings, and you try to put them together. And it's, you never know what's going to happen, right? But we just need to be aware about what we're bringing to the table and who's showing up. And at the same time, realize what they're doing. Do you have any advice for women? What advice do you have when they're, and as far as who they're choosing, or what to look for?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have women go through a few different exercises. One is to help them really get in touch with how they want to feel with a partner. I think we have so much emphasis on what's it going to look like, what's he going to look like, and also like what's the dating scenario going to look like, these stories about where we'll meet him, and just all of this. There's a difference between visualizing it and feeling into it.
Right.
So actually taking some of the emphasis off of your type, or like what you normally go for, what your kind of dreams from when you were little of what this person will look like, what their job will be, what your lifestyle will be.
Always Prince Charming. Always Prince Charming.
Yeah, totally. Prince Charming, or the opposite. I mean, I find also there's a lot of, this was one of my things, was like wanting the like bad boy or this edgier, whatever it is that like you have that physical like, whoo, like that's my, that doesn't, yeah. So, right, separating that out from how do I actually want to feel with someone, getting in touch with that, which is probably feeling really safe and secure and seen and at peace and grounded, and right. So that way, when you're dating and let's say you're seeing someone who you're really attracted to, but you look at how you feel with them and you're like, I feel totally anxious. I don't know where I stand with him. I feel like I can't be my full self. Right. And you look at that and you're like, that's the opposite of what I'm going for. So as you're meeting people, as you're dating, also knowing like, here are my non-negotiables, right? Need someone who's available physically, emotionally. Seems basic, but we forget to put that on our list. Right? What are those qualities? What are those things that are actually crucial to your sense of fulfillment and safety, and building the partnership you really want to build? It's less about this guy's stats or how he looks on paper. And about what you can create together.
I love it. I love when you said it's how you feel. And it's not the how you feel in terms of, like you said, my palms get sweaty, or I'm so excited. That's what I say. It's actually your reaction, because it's it's like an attraction indicator. And actually it's your fight or flight response. So you're saying more feel from, in terms of safe, secure, comfortable, not necessarily those initial, oh my God, he's good looking and therefore he must be the one, because just good looking doesn't always then mean he's the one. I remember I had a client ask me, they're like, oh, well, you're in a relationship, but what if another hot guy comes along? I'm like, okay, so he's hot, but does he snore? Does he like to go to the beach? Does he like me? There's all these other factors about whether it makes a good partner, rather than just that, is he a hot guy? So I'm like, that's not a threat at all. There's so much that goes into it that, it's amazing how when we move away, and I wonder if that's very similar to, like you're saying, about when we seek these external factors or this outside fulfillment. Do you think when people are focusing on just those surface things, what's happening there? Is it in line with that because it's what I envision, or is it more just an internal thing, or is it because it makes me look good? What do you think is happening there when people are focusing on those, how it looks? And
I think it could be any of the above or a combination, but I really think there's so much conditioning. We have so much conditioning everyone, but women especially, there's just a lot in our society that's dictated for us, that's been passed down, that we have like unconsciously absorbed from when we were little, that tells us, here's who the Prince Charming, here's who the dream partner is, here's what the fairy tale looks like, here's how it should feel, here's how it should look, here's the age at which it should happen, here's, it's really, there's just such the weight, that like the things we put weight into in our whole culture is, it's a little scary if you think about it. If you even just think about, I know this is kind of going on a tangent, but if you even think about how much advertising and messaging we're served as women, let's say, about how being thin or whatever it is, looking a certain, ideal, whatever the trend is of the moment, there's so much messaging about that one thing that it's almost impossible, unless we get really, really awake to it and start talking about it and doing work to counteract it, almost impossible to not just absorb that messaging and assume that's literally the most important thing that we can be, is whatever that thing is at the moment. And we'll spend all of our money trying to get to that thing, and all of our time and all of our brain power, and right. So when we've been conditioned that, tall, let's say, for a lot of years, I was like, tall men, I'm barely 5'4". I don't know why I thought I needed to make 6
You
feet.
wanted over 6 foot, I know, like everybody. Yeah.
I did.
Only like 8% of men are over 6 foot. Like, it's really low.
Right. So we're just missing out on 92%.
Right, exactly.
No big deal. And then getting blinded by those factors, being like, he's so tall, I guess it doesn't really matter if he's interesting, or if he thinks I'm interesting, or so just I think it would be a helpful investigation for all of us to start questioning, well, where did I get that idea from? Where did I get the idea that that's what masculinity is? Or where did I get the idea that whatever it is, whatever your surface level or picture of who you need is, and maybe it's like, that's what I have one client whose mom was single and dating while she was in high school, and so she realized she was kind of replicating the kind of unhealthy dynamics that her mom was playing out, right? Helpful to look at where we got these ideas, and because then we can choose for ourselves, okay, is that really supporting me, serving me towards the kind of love and partnership that I want to experience? Or can I let some of that go, create a whole lot more possibility for myself, start to put weight in the factors that are really going to lead to my fulfillment?
I love that you mentioned the tall guy. It's like a never ending, list, non-negotiable. My first boyfriend was, I think, shorter than me. I just knew he had to be bigger than me, which we can all make amendments. But like you said, it still comes back to how you feel. It's probably the most crucial thing. And we just, I think I'm totally in agreement with you in terms of, we just got to let go of what we think this might look like. I have this running I came up with this one time where I basically say, you create a shopping list because you know what's going to be at the store. You know what to get: bread, milk, eggs, this, and you make sure you tick it off. But at the same time, we almost have the same shopping list for a man, and it could be physical characteristics. It's like, but you don't know that that's what he's going to be. It's more like, you can't create a person. So I really like what you say about really have it come back to, how do you feel with them, and go off that versus have to check these criterias, right?
And there's a really good chance that if that person is available and consistent and treating you well, and not your usual type, and not the dynamic you're used to going for, there's a good chance that you're not going to feel that like insane, palm sweaty, as you described it, heart pounding, obsession, excitement, passion that's really anxiety and your system being activated, right? There's a good chance that it's going to feel a little slower and steadier, that you might feel some warmth and like you're like, this person's really compelling to me and I want to see them again.
Mm.
Um, and that the chemistry actually just it might be a little bit more of a slow burn where the chemistry
Mm.
builds.
Mm.
And you might be surprised. I remember when I was first doing this work, in my mind I was like, I'm reprogramming my attraction by actually like
Mm.
intentionally not choosing, walking away from
Mhm.
the hot men who are my type, but who like activate my anxiety and aren't actually available and aren't
Mm.
actually aligned with what I'm looking for. And I'm purposely leaning in and giving more time and space for connection and chemistry to grow with
Mm.
men who are available and wonderful and not unattractive to me, but just not people I might have overlooked or people I might have friend zoned before.
Yeah.
I was blown away to find that it didn't take that long for chemistry to build and for
Mm.
passion to build in that context of safety
Mm.
and emotional intimacy and connection.
Mm.
And suddenly I was like, how did I not think this dude was so hot a month ago? He's so hot to me now.
I know.
Because people change like in front of our
Mm.
eyes when we're
We
open to it.
change the lenses we look through, right? I love what you said about reprogramming the brain because again, like we're saying, if everybody's going for the tall, dark, and handsome, think about it. They actually don't need to work very hard because they have everybody going for them. So they're usually not the best guys anyway. So that's where I always say, like, all of a sudden, once you shift that perspective, not only do they probably not become the most attractive person, but all these other men open up as potential partners. And whereas we might be sitting in this, oh, there's no good guys left, and
Mhm.
he's not out there. But yet, once we shift our perspective as to what's good for us, what's attractive, what's healthy, what's going to serve us, I feel like people will see that there's a plethora of guys out there. Do you find that that with a bunch of clients that
Yeah,
it's just a shift, right?
yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I have a woman, a client who just graduated from the last round of our program, and I remember there was one week on our group call where she was like, we had just gotten through our 3 weeks of mindset work and
Mm-hmm.
looking at those limiting beliefs and shifting them and all that.
Mm.
And she had gone to a bar for like a happy hour in between, and she got on our call and she was like, you guys, there are men everywhere. And, like, I was at this bar and she swore, she's in a smaller town in the Midwest, she swore there were no men in her city, it's a college town, everyone's too young, all these stories, right? Swore. Because she's like, I don't know what happened. There's no way they all just showed up this week. She's like, I realize it's my mindset and my eyes being open, but I'm looking around this bar and there are all these cute men and I'm chatting with one and I've got this date next week. And it's like, right, she didn't have to move.
Right.
She didn't have to, lose the
Dress
weight.
sexier, or
She didn't have to, exactly.
yeah, she didn't have to start approaching men. She just needed to be open, receptive, and
Hmm.
essentially her perspective change as to what's attractive, right?
Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. I
And
mean, I
just
made it. I love that.
yeah, I was just gonna say too, like if your assumption is there are no good men left, all the men out there are either taken, gay, unavailable, whatever, then again, confirmation bias, you'll see a cute guy and without even noticing in your head, you'll rule him out because you're telling yourself this story that no one's available.
Right.
Versus if you go out into the world assuming
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone's open to connecting, everyone wants connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, then suddenly you're like making eye contact with people and you didn't used to, and you're saying hello and you're sitting next to someone in a coffee shop line, and it all opens up.
Yeah, I love it. I love how you say everybody wants connection, because I'm one that I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to anybody in the elevator, in
Mhm.
line for coffee, like, and people. I'll definitely know other clients who say, oh, but I don't want to bother them. It's like, you're not bothering anybody, and if you are, then they'll let you know, and just they won't talk to you back. It's like, okay, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means they're busy. They've got their focus. They don't want to talk. No big deal. How do you advise women to just not take things so personally? And because I know that's a big reason that people like to avoid rejection and all that. So how do you help guide them through that, and where do they start?
Yeah, well, one thing is just talking about this concept that nothing nothing is personal.
Hmm.
Hard as it is to believe, like it's really not about us, you know. And then I have them look at, put yourself on the other side of it, right? When we're the ones who is, let's say we meet that great, some great guy, but we're not, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel like a fit for us, and
Mm-hmm.
we reject them, right? Does that mean that guy isn't worthy? Does it mean he did something wrong? Does it mean he doesn't deserve? No, it's just that like we're looking for something specific,
Mm-hmm.
or we're only available for something specific, or who knows what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he looks like your ex. Maybe that's why you rolled him out,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it's
Yeah.
that whatever, lives too far. Who knows what it is? But that doesn't tell us about him, right? That just tells us about you and your preferences and your expectations and your desires and your beliefs and all of that. And when we can kind of put ourselves on that side of it,
Mm.
right? Like any judgments I have about anyone else, if I see a beautiful woman and I make a judgment about her, that's just reflecting that I'm feeling insecure in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we can first get that everything we see in the world and every opinion we have is just our own perspective and is just a reflection of
Mm-hmm.
us and where we are on that day, we can start to get that it's the same for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
um I did a really fun interview, this was a couple years now, with a few single guys, a video interview. It's actually in my Facebook community.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone can go watch it. But they were all friends. They had gone out together that weekend. And I asked them if when they were out, did they all find the same women attractive? And
Good
they said,
question.
yeah. And they said no, that they each had different women, all completely different types, different vibes, who they were interested in.
Mm.
And they also said that none of the guys went and approached them because they were scared, because they didn't want to be rejected.
So you're saying none of the guys wanted to approach the women because they were too scared.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these are attractive, successful men in
Mm.
their mid-30s. And
Mm.
they felt like they weren't sure if sometimes they said the women didn't seem that approachable, that they were like in a tight knit group of their friends.
Mm.
They said, a lot of times if you go up to a woman at a bar, she'll kind of ignore you or whatever. And like, it's just a reminder that they're human too.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so yeah, all to say, it's really a practice of just reminding ourselves, like, this isn't about me. I'm not for everyone. I'm just, the most important thing to me is that we're proud of how we're showing up,
Mm.
right? So if it's that you're going to an event or something and you make a mission for yourself of like, I'm going to stretch my comfort zone and I'm going to talk to 3
Yeah.
people and I'm going to make eye contact. And if that's how you define success for yourself that night,
Yeah.
versus success looks like getting asked out, getting like, we have to stop looking for the outcome, the
Yeah.
attachment to the outcome or to someone else's, something that's in someone else's control as what
More
makes,
about what you do. I
yeah.
love that. That's a great tip to kind of just, yeah, as long as you're doing your job and what you can do, that's all you can do. And therefore then, yeah, otherwise the outcome is, like you said, out of our control. I'd hear all the time, oh, I hope he doesn't call me back. I'm like, hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you don't want him to call you back if he's not calling you, like, or if he's been not a good dater for you, like, you don't, that's your choice. You don't have to rely on them. I love what you said about that story with the 3 guys. And just because I know so many women in that situation would have gone, oh, nobody came up to me that night, I must not be great. It's like, no, like, again, they're all just human. They all maybe could have just not been single, or they might have been intimidated, or they had a busy work week, or anything. I love what you're saying. That's why I always put it back on them and say, well, hey, if you're a good looking girl, you might be intimidating, and there's only so many people you're attracted to. So I go spot the people that you're attracted to and go start a conversation. Let them know you're interested and let them take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I'm not going to find everyone attractive, but the ones that I do, I'm going to let them know that I'm attracted. And then if they don't come back to me, again, same thing, don't take it personally. They might already have a girlfriend. They might just not be in the right place. They might not be date ready. They might not find me attractive. Okay, no problem. But at least, again, I'm doing what I can do to put it out there that I'm open to love, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting.
that you're available to connect too, right? Like,
Yeah. Even just, yeah, if you simplify to that connection, it's really, that's good. Cause then it's not
yeah,
so the, you know, the pressure of feeling like it needs to be love or something.
right, right.
Yeah, cool. Oh my gosh, amazing tips. This has been so enjoyable. So you have something that you can offer our audience and also let them know how they can stay in touch and reach out to you.
Yes, yes. So I have a video workshop that is, it's free to register for. It is in the final stages of being ready to be launched. By the time you're watching this video, hopefully it'll be live. It's called it's about the 3 traps that keep empowered career women from the love-filled lives they deserve.
Mm,
And really looking at those blocks and those patterns, self-sabotaging patterns, and what we really desire, and how to start showing up for your desires. Um, for now, I'm going to send you to my Instagram, which is where I share a ton of content and where I'll be sharing the link for the video workshop as soon as it's live. And that's just Evin Rose, Evin Rose, my Instagram.
mhm.
Um, and then my Empowered Dating with Evin Rose is the name of the Facebook community. Again, either place you can connect with me. I share a ton, and I'll be sharing the links as soon as the video workshop is live for you to dive into.
Great. Thank you so much for your tips, your story, sharing the stories. It all helps everyone, I think, for us to just share what we've been through and realize that we've been on a journey. We've all done the work. But I think you can see the ongoing theme through this is that it starts with us, and it's how we're showing up, and it's how we think about ourselves. Do we think we're lovable? You know, and if we don't have that, we're going to be self-sabotaging. We're going to have the beliefs that aren't serving us. But the minute we can change those and make them self-serving and loving and caring, not only will our relationship, our loving relationship, take a whole new track, our whole life will as well. So you can see that that's been the recurring thing of all of us and our stories, is that we've had to go do the work. But at the same time, there's people out there to help us, because none of us have done this on our own. We've all had coaches, and we've all sought help, read books, podcasts, summits, all these things. So as much as you can do, different things are going to resonate with you. So, you know, try everything. There's so much great advice out there. But again, great coaches like you, Evin. Thank you for your amazing mission to the world and helping us all through our trials and tribulations in love. But this is also, we can have that happy, healthy relationship and man that we have all dreamed of. So thank you, Evin, for sharing today, and we will see you again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye.